Welcome to Chop Shop Motors. My name is Clay, and this video is going to be kind of a hot rod deep dive. We're going to look at some very iconic parts of a lot of hot rods that are being built since, probably the 40s up to now. Super important part, and we're going to dive into them, and I'll give you guys a few pictures and some insight into what you're looking for and maybe what to steer away from my perspective. And it's really about knowing what you're buying, especially if you're buying stuff at a swap meet. And most of the stuff that we use around here oftentimes comes from, it was an original part, so it comes from maybe somebody we know or a friend of a friend, or maybe you can find it on OfferUp or Craigslist or eBay or a swap meet. We're gonna go to LA Roadster Show in a week or so, and we'll be on the prowl for stuff for our projects. So no matter where you go, there's one phrase that covers all of it, and that's buyer beware. So when you go there and you're looking at something, you have to know what it is you're looking at and what its value is, because you can hear every story there is out there from people selling it. Some are unbelievably knowledgeable, and some found it at a estate sale and they're putting it up for sale, and they put a big gigantic price tag on it because they feel it might be worth it, and it might not be what they think it is. And honestly, they don't really care. They just want to know if you're going to pass your cash on to them and make their day. So let's look at some stuff and maybe help you from getting duped, and allow you to know when you stumble across something that's a pretty good value, you don't have to second guess it as much. So let's take a look at some 32 Ford grill shells. The first one we're going to look at is a pretty common shell that you're going to come across. You're going to see them for sale a lot. You can pick one of these up at multiple places, manufactured by who knows who. They're imported from China, and they fit, for the most part, terrible. Original parts don't always fit them. My advice is, if you buy an aftermarket grill shell, buy the grill shell and the insert at the same place, and you might have at least a fighting chance that the insert will fit the grill shell. Will the grill shell fit an original car? Maybe. This is an aftermarket. It has had the radiator fill deleted. It wasn't deleted. It never came with it. So this came without the radiator fill. It has none of the pieces that you would think on an original one are there. It was not meant to be an original one. It was meant for a hot rodder to build one and not spend the money on an original. Super plentiful. They're all over. You can look on Summit and get one, and you can probably have it here by Tuesday, and you'll be ready to play if that's what you want to do. They're a little bit different than original in multiple ways. My guess is the gauge of the metal is probably different. It does not have access for a crank hole, so it was made smooth and probably would go with a non-crank hole insert, and that would be the look that the builder would be striving for. On the inside, super simple. There's no bolt holes for anything to mount. There's no holes for, well, this one does look like it has a hole in the top, no pun intended. Has a single hole up here for the rod. bracket, but it doesn't have, it's pretty generic. And that's the way these come. So if you see one of these and somebody says it's an original, it's not. And just be aware of what you're buying. If it's an original and it's smooth on the outside, there's going to be metal work up inside here where somebody's done the work to remove the gas filler. I mean the radiator filler. So just look, see what kind of tales the old metal tells you. So that's an aftermarket. Know what you're stepping into. I don't even know how much these are. I got this in a trade for a bunch of parts. I wouldn't have bought it just because it's not my thing, but I think they're pretty cheap, maybe $100 new. But again, just be aware of what you're buying. All right, let's look at the next one. The second one we're going to look at is this primered grill shell. This is an authentic 1932, but it is a 1932 commercial. So what that means is it came on trucks and big trucks in that year. It has a crank hole. It does not have a removable insert. So the insert louvers would have been painted, well, they could have been painted a different color, but you wouldn't have pulled it out to paint it in. It would have had to be masked off to paint the insert a different color. I'm not sure if they came painted a different color or not, but anyway, you can do it if you want to. So the difference about this is that the insert doesn't remove. There's no stainless around the opening here. There's no stainless back here. So super basic. There's no, if you look at the top, it has an emblem that says Ford, and it has a reveal for where the fill is, but there is no cast aluminum piece that was supposed to go on there. So that's how it would have looked. It would have been all painted and shiny, and the radiator cap would have gone on, and that's all the trim that would have been there. Very basic, and you can see how they saved some of the money. Back in 32, people were not buying commercial vehicles because it was cool. People were buying commercial vehicles because they had a job to do, and price point was everything. So if you look at the profile from the side, kind of angle it so you can see, it has the same basic profile as a passenger car, but maybe just a touch more abrupt at the way the front of the shell comes out to meet the peak in the grill shell. I know it's all a grill shell, but the insert. So right here, this piece is just a little more abrupt, not quite as gentle as it comes out over this piece and meets this. So the stamping is a little different. It fits a passenger car and vice versa. So there are people who have built quite a number of people who built really super cool hot rods and used a commercial grill on it, and they look fantastic. So it's just, is that what you found? Is that what you want? If they work, the fit of them is basically the same. I will say the fit is a little different depending on the radiator, even if you have an original one. So my advice is everything gets pre-fit. Don't assume because you're taking off, you're using an original radiator and this is just going to bolt right on and you're going to be good to go. Pre-fit everything, because the radiator you use could have an impact on how well or how much you have to tweak it to get it to fit. But that's totally your call. So let's look at the inside. Okay, as you look at the inside, pretty basic. This liner down here is a separate piece. It's welded into the grill shell after the fact. And so therefore what that means is you could get this out gently, straighten things, fix any rust, which these shells do have a propensity to rust in that lower lip area, the chin, just because it fills up with dirt and the moisture and just nature of the beast. This one has some stress cracks here and some stress cracks here, some from bumping into things, some from probably vibration. You can see how this grill shell looked pretty straight, but it has a bit of a curve here, and then on this side it's pretty straight. If anything, it might have a little swoop in. So you got to look at them with a really critical eye, because these things are old. They've been around, and the truck ones get used up. So this is a really nice example of a truck grill. It probably came out of Arizona, and it has at least spent 50 years in Arizona, because I know that much of the history of the truck that it was once on. But you can see a little bit of rust here, which is kind of natural. A little bit of rust here, but a little bit here. So not trying to make it out as cherry cream puff, but absolutely savable and a cool piece. So a great alternative to a 32 passenger car. Probably price is going up on them. Easily half the price of a passenger car grill. But you can probably find one even less than that if you are diligent, because the passenger car grill is really the one everybody wants. All right, let's look at the next one. The third grill we're going to take a dive into is not a 32 grill at all. This is a 33-34 Ford truck grill. And the reason I show you this is you come across these a lot of times at swap meets, and you see them on eBay, and they're up for sale as a 32 grill. And if you buy it and you're planning to use it on a 32, it's not a 32. So dimensionally, the tattletale piece is it's just thicker. It's got a much thicker profile to it, maybe an inch thicker in here, maybe half an inch. An inch is a lot, so maybe half an inch. And it's made to angle back on the frame. So you'll notice that the top of it is almost flat. So the top is like flat like it would be, and look at how much angle the grill shot. That is what's going to screw you up when you go to use it on your 32 that you're building. People don't notice that because they look at it, and at a glance, you know, it has its heritage in the 32 grill. It definitely takes design elements from it. It has an insert that's made into it, so it's an integral insert. It looks very similar. This one has a fair amount of sin that has happened to it, but it was a wall hanger, and that's just fine. It also had a piece of stainless that went around the perimeter. So, but you know, it only has one hole, but I'm pretty sure that these grill shells had a piece of stainless that went around the perimeter. I'm not an expert on 33-34 grills, just because I don't have one of those trucks per se. I'm not building a 33-34 right now, but if you're building a 33-34, that's what you're looking for. If you're building a 32, well, this isn't what you're looking for. So this won't make the cut to pop on in place of maybe aftermarket 32 and get you the look you need with Jenny parts. So that is kind of a 33-34. If you look at the inside, it is original. It has the hole for the Ford emblem to go in. You know, it's a cool piece. It's an excellent wall hanger, and it could absolutely be used on something. It's been heavily modified. It's had the chin cut and altered for height, so it's made its way onto somebody's hot rod at some point, which is cool. if that's what you're looking for, that's awesome, right? You're going to use what you feel is going to give you the look. Just be aware that the nuances are small and you got to know what you're looking for. All right, let's look at the last one. The last one we're going to look at is a 32 passenger car grille shell. So this is the piece that lots of hot rodders look for, and sometimes you can find a piece that's all together, and sometimes you build it out of multiple grille shells and swap meet finds and things of that nature. So let's take a little bit closer look at it. So from a profile, you can see much narrower than that previous grille we looked at, much more sensuous. Takes design cues from a 32 Lincoln. Edsel Ford was heavily involved in how this was designed. It has a cast aluminum surround where the radiator comes through. This piece is super desirable and sought after. This particular shell is an original that more than likely has probably looked like this since probably the 60s, I would guess, sometime like that. So the insert on this is a painted insert. So they come both ways. They come with stainless bars or they come with painted bars. This particular one has painted bars. It has a stainless piece that goes around the opening after you put the insert in, and it has another piece at the bottom that goes around the crank hole opening. So those are all components that make up the 32 shell. The other piece it has is along the edge. It has one more piece that goes around where the hood meets the grille shell. So basically, I tell you this because you'll see a 32 grille shell come out for sale and it'll be bare, and it might be it might seem like a really good price, but just remember, you still gotta buy all the other pieces to go with it if you're gonna use it in this configuration. So you're gonna spend, if you spend 800 bucks on a bare grill, on a bare shell that's original, but it's really straight, that's fine. But then you're going to probably spend another $600 on an insert. You might spend $300 on that stainless that goes around it. You might spend $1.50 on that little piece that goes around the crank hole, and you'll probably spend 300 or 400 bucks on the piece that goes around the radiator fill, and then that piece that goes around the back where the hood goes, I don't know, probably another $1.50. So it adds up when you do it a piece at a time. So just be aware that the price you pay for a grille shell complete like this one is going to be higher, but in the long run it might actually be the better price. So let's look inside. Inside you'll see it has a crank hole cover that's integral. The insert's held in with screws along the perimeter. Little, probably 1/4-20 with square nuts. Pretty simple configuration. The other piece just to be aware of is these weren't all perfect. So sometimes you look at them and it's like, well, that's not perfect. It looks, it looks a little funky. It's like, yeah, chances are it could have been like that and never had anything happen to it. So just be aware that it was made in 1932, and so there might be some flaws or things like that that met the standards then, but might not meet your standards. So don't shy away from one just because it's not perfect. If you find one that's not perfect in a smoking deal and you don't want it, you should IM me and we'll find a new home for it. So that is really the the piece that everybody, well, I say everybody like everybody's doing this, but so many people love that grill shell and they love an original one. That's a great example of an original 32 grill shell. It's going to go on that 4-door sedan we're building, and I'm going to be super excited to be motoring down the road with that original piece. I'm Clay for Chop Shop Motors. I hope this gives you some insight into what you're looking for at the swap meets and can help you be an informed swap meet buyer. We'll see you on the next project.